Welcome to part 4. So far in this Recommission and Ride project, we've focused on taking this bike apart to assess for wear and damage. We've also cleaned the engine and parts so they're ready to put back on. Today, we'll be refurbishing the cylinder head. We've covered some of the processes we do today in other recent videos, so if you've seen something before, feel free to use the chapters to skip ahead. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started.
Okay, cylinder head. So we're going to take the valves out. We'll plugs out first, obviously. Take the gaskets off. We'll take the stub manifolds off the back. But we're just going to check the head for any cracks and see what the guides are like and get an indication here, because today are going to assess for our spare parts. So first thing we're going to do, just drop the plugs out, then we go from there. Taking the valve out, we need to compress valve spring collet retainer down to release the two collets, which is quite straightforward. Put the tool on the valve, just make sure when you come near it that's centered on the valve, on the head of the valve. And we compress the spring. Sometimes they ping a little bit, just releasing the tension of the collets. Just a little bit more on the tool. Then just use your magnet to take them out. Then take the tension off the tool and be careful your spring doesn't fly out. Double springs. You've got a cup at the bottom, make sure that comes out. Our valve guide. As long as you get a bit of a lip, as this one's got, don't bash it through the guide. Just get a file, a very fine file, and just take that edge off. It's where it's come up onto the collet, it's just forced it out slightly. Okay, so you've got a modelling file. And you can see there's a bit of a burr on the back, just there. So just rotate it round. Hold your valve. You don't want to take much off. There you go. You just get a little bit of a lip sometimes, a little bit of a burr. You see, if I'd left it on there and pushed it through or drifted it through, you would have scored all the inside of the valve guide. Yeah, it always pays to, before you start doing this job, just make sure you've got the right tools to do the job, really. It's so much easier and it's a lot safer, because these springs are under a lot of tension. And if they do come flying out, you're certainly going to know about it. With any head work, because you're going to get top end overhaul gasket set, although your gaskets might look alright in your stubs, take them off, because the heat will break them down. They might look alright, you come to take them off, they can break up easily. So it's always good, you can keep them in second hand, a good sort of spare one, but always replace them. If they're in the gasket set, use them all. Always a good idea, check all the threads. Threads are okay. Not pulled out at all. Here you can see we're going to have to put this on a block. A little bit of damage here. A bit of a gouge there. We won't get it all out, but just tidy it up. Get a lot of that sort of gouging out of it, really. Get a nice clean surface. So just check all your threads. Make sure there's no cracks anywhere. So you get marks like that. Not good. That's why we're going to put it on the block. Yeah, just try and keep it on the centre of the paper, even pressure. Backwards and forwards. Just make sure you wet the paper underneath first, because that will help it stick to your block. Yeah, try and do it both ways, side to side, like this. And if you can, we haven't got a lot of movement on this paper, but that way, end ways as well. Yeah, it's straight away you see whether the head's true or not. You can see there is quite a few marks around his head. So one wonders whether this head, his original head on here, It looks to me like it's been put on here later as a replacement head, because it's a lot of marks here, and I don't think, well, I might be wrong, I can't see how they've got there. It looks like it's been, you know, spare parts somewhere. Maybe it was a head-on from a jumbo or something, because there's a lot of marks here, but nothing too bad. There's one here, but I can't take that right out. We might just give it a bit more, but I think with a new gasket it'd be fine. If you look at this, this is very dull here, casting. This is slightly polished up. And if you look carefully, it looks like a line. Looks like that fin's been put back on. I might be wrong, but it looks like it's had some repair work done on there. It just looks a bit unusual why that should be all polished. What I say, it pays to put your head on the block, because if you look at the drillings and where the bolts run through, very, very minimal amount of material here for the head gasket to sit on. That's why you want this really as true as you can get it. If there's any marks here, it's very thin here. There's not a lot of surface area here between, obviously, the outside of the head and the inside of the stud is, where the bolt runs through rather. But no, it should be okay. But we just look for any cracking or anything like that on this head. All these inlet valves, this one, the middle one, and the one on the end, are fine. But if you look at the exhaust valve seat, it's slightly pitted, although we have really good compression. That's another reason why we want to just grind these valves in. We're going to just mop up round here. I say mop up, get rid of this carbon, clean this out first, and valves want just lapping in and putting back in. Where the rocker boxes sit on top of the cylinder head, just going to do the same on this. Going to put it over on the block, just make sure all the surface area here is nice and clean and as true as it can be. As we say, there's a little bit of damage down here, which we won't get rid of, but we can clean the top of that. It'll look better in a moment. It just shows it up. We've got an area here where we haven't got very much contact. We're going to do this a little bit more in here. See here, it's come back nicely. There's a few places just slightly out. It's better. I don't think we get it all out, because it's probably a minimal amount of slight variation in the top of this, to a certain extent. Okay, spark plugs. Let's just stop for a minute. If you take your plug out your head, always do it when it's cool, never do it when it's hot. Obvious reasons, the alley expands, and you could end up with that alley expanded, and it grips that plug and takes the thread out. I talk a lot about threads and things, I know I do. But if that's dry, that plug, it's squeaky. You put a little bit of copper slip, you just got a little bit on the threads. So when you screw it down, it's got a little bit of lubrication around there. Because when that's dry like that, the next step is it starts to lock up that spark plug. You'll obviously put your plug in and you'll nip it up. You come to take it out, it's really gripped tight because it's almost sort of welded itself in. Just a little bit of copper slip is a good idea, because copper slip will stay there. If you use grease, it'll burn off. Little tip, if your plug thread is becoming like you're worried about your plug thread, it's got carbon build up inside it. Say you've got an engine, burns a bit of oil, and the oil started to set as carbon, and the thread's got really tight, put the plug back in. Or maybe the plug thread is a bit damaged. Get an old spark plug, get a cutting disc, a small one, and just put a grind line down the centre of it. So this is a die. Now what we've done is mimic the same thing here. You've got flutes here. The idea is when you're tapping your thread, all the debris goes into the flute. And that's what you're doing with the spark plug. You've actually ground a line down the centre of it there. It means that we'll cut each one of these, each one of the actual thread teeth itself is quite sharp, and that will cut into the base of the spark plug thread, and any debris, it will chase it out. It will all collect in that centre section there, which you just blow out. Yeah, we're just going to take out some of the carbon in the expansion chamber part of the head and in the recess of the valve pockets here. Okay, both valves, we're just going to put them on the wire brush wheel here. Just take the carbon off. The inlet one's obviously not too bad. Exhaust's got a little bit on here, and then we just quickly just wash out the springs obviously before we put them back together. So just tidy up here. Yeah, I've got the head dripping, well, drying a little bit in the kerosene cleaner. I tend to try and conserve as much of the kerosene as I can, but it's not really a good idea to fly it around with the airline because you don't want to blow it everywhere. It atomises in the atmosphere, you're going to breathe it in. So, although I'm not wearing a mask here, but you try and be a little bit careful about what you inhale really to a certain extent. Get a high build up here of carbon, and you'll find that will be glowing like red hot. It's got so hard, it glazes. You want to try and get it off really. The next step would be a burning valve on that really. So in order so your valve sucker won't stick to it very well, so we need to get that right away. It does come off with a bit of persuasion. Okay, so we're doing a bit of a clean up on the head. Inlet ports we found there's like black silicone, so we're just cleaning around there. Finish it off in a moment. The combustion chambers, we're going to use a very worn flat wheel, and it's got the nice profile. It's going to be on the buzz gun here, and we're just going to take this other loose carbon off. So we're just going to put a little bit of WD-40 in there. Now what we can also check for now is to make sure that the valve seats, there's no gap or movement at all, because these are all pressed in, these valve seats. Gives you a better idea what it looks like. We'll go on to the second one, and we'll buff this one up. Now we've cleaned up the chambers, I've just been looking at the valve seats, and the exhaust ones are quite pitted, so we're going to recut those at 45-degree angle with new cutters, and we'll do the inlets as well. And don't need to take very long, and I'll show you. With a good cutter, just put a bit of lube on the tool. It runs through the guide, so it's easier to turn. Just keep that nice pressure. Turn it a little bit. Take it out. So we'll now have a quick look at the seat. You can see the comparison already between this outside cylinder and number 2. So we're trying to eliminate all the pitting. So you need to cut that a little bit more. If you haven't got a seat cutter, the old trick was to use your valve and you used to put the valve through the guide, an electric drill on the back, or in this case you could do it with an air driven drill, and you could spin that, but it'd take a long time. You know, really it's got to be done with a cutter, but you can sometimes get away with it, or lots and lots of lapping with a stick, but it'd take forever. So we're going to carry on with this a bit more. There you go. All we've got to do now with that, just lap that valve in. You can see the spoil down the bottom. We'll do all those 3 exhausts, and we'll do the inlets. We're on the centre valve guide now. A little bit tight getting the tool through there, but when we start cutting, I tend to bring it out, move it around a little bit, then go back in, try and keep your hand equal pressure. Okay, we're just doing the inlet valve seats now. Always checking your book, make sure your angle's the same. These are 45 degrees, so inlet's a different size valve, but the seats, both inlet and exhaust, are 45. Just make a check before you start cutting. Okay, because we've taken our valves out, we've taken them out as the inlet, being this one here, and exhaust. What you have to bear in mind is, because we've been cutting our seats, that you get your head back round the right way, because they're upside down at the moment. So just make sure you haven't got yourself the wrong way around, because it's easily done. So put your head back over and think, inlet, right, we'll start from that side. So we're doing the inlet on this side, nearest us first. So what we do, we just put a little bit of lube on the valve stem. And get our valve sticker, which I haven't got yet. When we're doing this, we shouldn't need to use coarse because we've cut these seats. And if the valve angle was pitted, I would dress it on a machine, which I haven't got recommissioned yet, but they're okay. Get your sucker in the middle. Just spin it around and coat it. Don't need too much. Now this doesn't take too long. You probably spend like cutting the valves just now, we probably spent, I don't know, best part of a minute cutting each one. In this process really, it's until you get a nice finish, and we take it out and just check so you've got a nice grey finish and it's regular. You've got good contact all around. It's important to keep your valve dry, and then you get a good suction with the sticker, with the suction pad on the end. So we'll just take it out and just have a quick look. We're looking for that nice grey finish. It's nice and grey there. And we check it all round, and that looks good. It should be, because we've got, the seats have been cut out with a cutter, a new cutter, and we just have a look in a moment and look at that. You can see got a nice finish on there, good contact. That one's done. When you've oiled your stem of your valve and got it into the guide, then put your paste on. I'm not telling people to suck eggs, but don't get any paste onto your stem or you end up grinding out your valve guide. You don't need too much of this, just rotate your valve. And it's just like the Boy Scouts, it's just like trying to make fire with sticks. Keep that nice and straight. And palms your hand. You can hear it biting, you know it's cutting, and just turn it. And you've got to do it fast. Just need a little bit down pressure. So I've finished doing the lapping on the inlets and exhausts. I've just got some brake cleaner on some paper and just taken the last of the residue of paste out from the seat. You always give a little tap at the end just to make sure the collets are home properly. Today's been a good day, and cylinder head. We've had this head down and we've recut the seats. We've actually ground the valves in and we've surface dipped the head on the block, just make sure it's okay. We've now just put all the valves back in, and we're just going to do the last little tap on that valve there now. We can take the blocks away, because today we are finished. Then head's all done, and we just give that a wipe over now, and that's ready to go back in the engine when we get all our bits. There you go, one finished cylinder head.